We've got a major John Harbaugh update to talk about on today's show from ESPN's Adam Schefter. Before we do that, though, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are 293 subscribers away from getting to our goal of 100,000 subs. If you want multiple free videos every day on the New York Football Giants, hit that sub button right now. You're watching New York Giants Now by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Marshall Green. We're talking about John Harbaugh on today's show, and that directly is intertwined with Matt LaFleur, who lost a game that felt like that was unlosable last night in the wild card round. And now the speculation is, are the Green Bay Packers going to fire Matt LaFleur? You may be asking, Marsh, how does that have anything to do with John Harbaugh? Well, Adam Schefter went in on ESPN, and he said to keep your eyes on John Harbaugh joining the Green Bay Packers as their next head coach if the Packers fire Matt LaFleur. Schefter, in a tweet, writing, former Packers president Bob Harlan is royalty in Green Bay. His son Brian is an agent who represents John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh has deep Midwestern roots and ties. If the Packers decide they want to change head coaches, Harbaugh would be the most logical replacement. This was that full quote from Schefter. Well, the Packers' former president back in the day was a man by the name of Bob Harlan. Bob Harlan's son, Brian Harlan, represents John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is a Midwestern guy and has a home in the Upper Peninsula. A lot of people in the league have been wondering if the Packers decide to go in a different direction, if all of a sudden the Green Bay Packers might vault to the top of John Harbaugh's list as the top candidate choice for him. This has been a wild, crazy coaching cycle, and we might just be scratching the surface. If the Green Bay Packers do fire Matt LaFleur, that is going to send a ripple across the National Football League. And I agree with Schefter, and I agree with Jordan Hernan as well. The Packers are a serious threat to hire and steal John Harbaugh away from the New York Football Giants. Giants insider Jordan Hernan of ESPN saying, as Adam Schefter said, Bob Harlan ran the Packers for almost 20 years. His son Brian is John Harbaugh's agent. Harbaugh is a Midwest guy at heart. If the Packers' job comes open, it's definitely a massive threat for the Giants and anyone else who wants Harbaugh as their head coach. We told you the moment after John Harbaugh was fired that there was going to be competition. And there was going to be competition from teams that need a head coach and teams that even have a head coach. And we've seen the Dolphins fire their head coach to get into the John Harbaugh sweepstakes. And now we wait to see what the Green Bay Packers are going to do. You have to ask the question, what does John Harbaugh want? Because once you figure that out, you're going to be able to pinpoint which job he wants. Does he want his own team? Meaning someone that he can create into a winner. Does he want to develop a program? Does he want to be the face of that organization? Does he want to work with a young quarterback that when that quarterback arrives, it will be because of him? That's the New York Giants and John Harbaugh. If you want to go to a team that's ready to compete for a Super Bowl, you want to win a Super Bowl next year, you want to work with a team that hasn't had any lows really ever in their franchise's history, that's the Green Bay Packers. If you want to go to a team where maybe you have a relationship with the owner or the owner has a great relationship with your brother, it's the Miami Dolphins. And then there's still teams like the Falcons and still teams like the Titans. I think the Giants are the leader in the clubhouse. I really do believe that. And I think that John Harbaugh is going to be a New York Football Giant. But it's not going to get easy. It's going to be sweaty. And I'm hoping it ends up with John Harbaugh and Big Blue. Diana Rossini reporting that there has been no formal meetings scheduled yet for John Harbaugh. This was just moments ago. He plans to spend today, speaking of on Sunday, mapping out how he wants to approach the process and will begin informing interested teams of his plans starting tomorrow morning. So there we go. Will the New York Giants be the first visit? Will the New York Giants be the only visit? Will the Giants be the last visit? Will John Harbaugh be a Giant? If you want that to happen, hit that thumbs up icon. I've heard some things that maybe teams could be traveling to Harbaugh instead of Harbaugh flying all over the country. And he may take his list down to maybe only 3 teams he's interested in. And I expect, and I know that the Giants are going to be on that list. We started today's show talking about Matt LaFleur because it's a game of musical chairs at this point. Right now there are 7 jobs open, 8 jobs open, including the Ravens, 7 potential jobs for John Harbaugh. There's 7 seats open, and he's running around. Where's he going to sit? What happens if another seat becomes open, and then another very talented, well-respected head coach starts running around? Like, if Matt LaFleur becomes available, and let's say John Harbaugh goes to the Packers, Matt LaFleur is number 1 on my list. If Matt LaFleur becomes available, and John Harbaugh is still available, I would choose John Harbaugh, but it's like Harbaugh here and LaFleur there. They're that close, in my opinion. And just like we talked about with Harbaugh, there is going to be a lot of interest in Matt LaFleur as well. Has not been fired at the time of recording this video. There was already talks throughout the season that this could be his last year here. His final year of his contract would begin at the start of the 2026 season. And there are rumors out there that the Green Bay Packers don't want to pay Matt LaFleur the amount of cash that he is looking for. And then you stack on what he wants with what he just delivered in the wild card weekend against the Green Bay Packers. Maybe they just cut ties with him. But expect for the Baltimore Ravens to have interest in LaFleur. I also expect for the Miami Dolphins to have interest in him, as well as the Titans and the Falcons and pretty much every team that needs a head coach. Ian O'Connor, who has had his fingerprints all over the John Harbaugh sweepstakes, tweeting out just moments ago, I'm told GM Joe Schoen has had direct contact with John Harbaugh, and that those talks have been positive. Long way to go, but Schoen has been a relentless John Calipari level recruiter on this one, which likely speaks to his willingness to work with John Harbaugh on the roster. A lot to break down. The Giants and Joe Schoen have directly communicated with John Harbaugh. Says those talks have been positive. I think that means positive in 2 ways. Long way to go, but Schoen has been relentless. This reads like a fake tweet. He's been a relentless recruiter. John Calipari-esque. But the most important line of this is the last one, which likely speaks to his willingness to work with John Harbaugh on the roster. We said it time and time again. When you hire John Harbaugh, you go from a Joe Schoen organization to a John Harbaugh organization, even if you keep Joe Schoen. And Joe Schoen's power, say so, it gets dialed back a hell of a lot when you bring in John Harbaugh. And that's what that last line says. It's like, look, you may not want to work with me, John Harbaugh, but you won't have to fire me because I will give you the decision-making power that you want. Just let me keep my job. It's kind of how I read that last one, as well as I read at the top, being positive, being he maybe wants to be a Giant, and John Harbaugh's willingness to work with Joe Schoen is positive for Joe Schoen's future. Harbaugh's going to start interviewing this week. I have heard rumors that the New York Giants could have an interview as early as Monday. Just rumors. Just speculation. Just he said, she said, a big old game of telephone. But I have heard the New York Giants are all in on John Harbaugh, and they are going to do essentially whatever it takes. John Mara wants his legacy hire. This hire by John Mara would stamp him as a big-time owner in the history of the New York Football Giants. Diana Rossini saying John Harbaugh is spending today, that was earlier this weekend, exactly yesterday, and the next few days watching film specifically on quarterbacks, Jackson Dart and Cam Ward. He's also been in contact with the team's decision makers while continuing to communicate with potential members of his own coaching staff. All I ask out of John Harbaugh is when you go and watch the Jackson Dart tape, realize a couple of things. 1, no Malik Neighbors. 2, you also need to go watch the highlights of all the dropped passes as well, because there's a lot of those, about potentially 7 or 8 touchdowns that were dropped this year. Albert Breer saying that the New York Giants are going to request an interview for DC Chris Shula of the LA Rams. Dolphins, Titans, and Giants have put in requests to interview Chris Shula. You have to request him since his team is still in the playoffs. While the Browns request an interview with the Rams passing game coordinator Nathan Shieldhouse, per source. Rams assistant can interview for jobs this week. It's really starting to heat up. I wouldn't be surprised if this time next week we have a head coach. Make sure you have this t-shirt. Go to chatsports.com/NYG shirt. It's chatsports.com/NYG shirt. It was $45. Now it is $25. While it has not officially been reported, I guess Albert Breer reporting it, he should be on this list. But we just talked about Chris Shula, and then we just talked about John Harbaugh getting an interview as well. Mike Kafka, Vance Joseph, Kevin Stefanski, Klint Kubiak, Mike McCarthy, Lou Anarumo, Raheem Morris, Antonio Pierce have all or are going to interview at some point this week. Who will be the Giants' next head coach? Predict it for me down in the comment section. Give me a name. I want to hear from all the real ones down below. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you made it this far in the video, I kindly ask, please, for you to go and subscribe. We are knocking on the door of 100,000 subs, and we need your help. So smash that big red sub button right now.